Isabel, I want to start with you. What concrete results are we expecting from this summit?
Yes, well, in fact, it does seem to be a more substantive summit than we might have expected. It was initially set up because the three leaders didn't have time to meet on the sidelines of the G7 summit in May. But they have quite a broad-ranging agenda, and they're expected to come up with things, for example, like setting up a hotline between the three countries so they need to confer in times of crisis, and indeed making a commitment that they will confer when those crises occur. Also, things like setting up military exercises, annual military exercises, which have been very difficult to organize in the past, particularly between Japan and South Korea, and also just institutionalizing this summit. Now, it's being held for the first time separately from any other summit on its own as a freestanding event, and that's going to be an annual event, they say.
And Sangmi, what are we expecting from South Korean President Yoon Suk-Yeol during this summit?
Sherry, South Korean President Yoon Suk-Yeol will be heading and touching down in D.C., and he'll straight up go to Camp David, the presidential retreat, where he will begin by sitting down with Biden for a one-on-one, and followed by the tri-lateral meetings with Kishida and Biden together. And they will have the working lunch together, and that's when Japan and South Korea are going to have the bilateral summit. It will follow a joint presser where they will be laying out two documents that they have agreed on, which are the Camp David principles and spirit of Camp David. The first principles would be literally talking about the principles U.S., South Korea, and Japan share by themes, and it will be touching upon some of the key issues, global issues, such as the advanced technology, climate change, and non-proliferation. Spirit of Camp David, they will be this would be the joint statement among the three nations, where they will be talking about forming perhaps a new group or alliance of the three that, as was just mentioned, that would be also talking of some of the extended deterrence. We presume that or President Yoon had mentioned to us earlier.
And Isabel, Sangmi just talked about really those shared values between these countries, while officials have also talked about wanting to lock in gains that have been made in the relationship between Tokyo and Seoul. How likely is it that they will succeed?
Well, I think that's something we very much have to look at over a period of the coming years. Obviously, between Japan and South Korea, we have decades of resentment that have built up over Japan's colonial era misdeeds in the Korean Peninsula. And we've seen, when we've seen rapprochements in the past, we've seen that sort of fall back again when you get a new president in Seoul. So that's one issue that could occur in the future. But I think we also have to look at the U.S. piece of this. I think U.S. officials have been quite open in saying they want to make this a bipartisan feeling and agreement, because we don't know who the next U.S. president is going to be, and it may not be someone who's so keen on maintaining these alliances with the U.S.'s traditional friends.
Sangmi, you did have an exclusive interview with Yoon earlier. What did he tell you in terms of a possible breakthrough in cooperation with the U.S. in deterring North Korea, which, incidentally, we heard might be considering testing another missile?
That's right. Yoon said he expects the summit with Prime Minister Kishida and Biden to lead to somewhat of a more wider agreement with the three to better or enhance capabilities against threats of North Korea. And this would be a quite landmark, a milestone summit, or somewhat of a group or consultative body that they create. If they do so, experts are telling us here that this could be a form of a mini NATO that could be keeping Beijing and Pyongyang in checks. This would be pretty significant, just considering that the presidential office had said that the three countries combined, the GDP of them is 1/3 of the entire world, and it's a massive collaboration body of the three, and we'll have to see what comes out of the meeting.